Who's popping?
But I believe I just have to go like that. And it's up. But I don't want to touch that because I want to show this smoke screen, you know, because you only get it once.
Is that right?
Yeah. I could go to IE and then you could get it once again, but yeah. I'm sure I could do something with cash or something. I'm not going to figure that out right now.
Yeah, there's just one on the slide talks about how to get the stuff.
So, again, I'm sure she told you, but, so we're actually running the slideshow back there. We'll be emulating it, just so we don't have any, you know, take everything off of that computer in the back rather than. So we should be good. So just don't, if you point a red pointer up there, they're not gonna see it at home.
It's amazing to me how many people don't understand you can't point a pointer at a screen.
You can here.
TV screen.
TV screen, right. Well, and you know the green one, I got a green one for the chancellor's office. If you stay within like a 30-degree vector,
It works.
you can see it if you don't move too fast. Because TV screen's got that light absorbing glass.
Just pointing. Yeah. So the Informatics Institute thing,
sent me a note with 3 different options she's researched. And so I'm meeting with her, John and I are gonna meet with her on Wednesday. And I said, that's great. Thanks for, you've done a lot of research. Why don't we talk about what you want to do, right? Because, except the Surface Hub, the other stuff, I'll just get it anyway. You know, we'll have to figure it out. But like smart boards and stuff, as smart, smart whiteboards, we can use that. I mean, the Surface Hub, we had a shot at it because it's dual purpose.
That's interesting. When he articulated he was the loss of people.
Well, that's just, okay.
Which be
Well, no, well, what he was seeing the VIA. We have a VIA.
he called it surface DC.
Right, they got a Surface Hub, but as an input to the Surface Hub, you can switch to the VIA. So you can see that the Surface Hub has multiple inputs, just like the PD. So you have, even on the main input, it's the Microsoft Surface Hub. Now you can run Stack for Business, and it looks like a Stack for Business window with multiple windows. If you're running VIA to switch inputs, move off of the Microsoft Surface Hub interface to the regular HMI interface, you run VIA. So I don't know what he saw. Yeah. So it just depends on, and I just thought, I'll just go talk to them, see what they're trying to accomplish. And then we'll help them figure it out, and we'll work with,
And so the surface is just
it's a touch screen. It's a touch screen, it's a Microsoft tablet, Surface Hub tablet, at 55 inches with 2 cameras, one on either side, flips, and it's got all that built in. So even though it's $8,000 for the 55 inch, what you're saving is you're not having to buy a computer like over in North Campus in 760 or 676. We have a built-in Zoom shot that's mounted right below the flat screen. We just got the small form factor Dell. So we'll plug that USB. We have a single room microphone up top that we plug in. So it's all running. So what you're doing is you're saving all that, just which is almost another $4,000 or $5,000. Including install. And you're getting touch screen. So so we'll see. Yeah. No, yeah, we should be fine.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We got a few people in the audience here. I know we've got maybe a larger number of people online on Skype. I'm looking up to make sure people can hear me on Skype okay. I'm John Guzman. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer at the university. I've been here, I tell people how long I've been here. At some point I'll probably stop that, but about 3.5 years actually, which in some ways it seems like it's been longer, and sometimes it has flown by. As we were reflecting on the content for this presentation, we recognized a lot of our previous town halls have been about planning things that we were thinking about doing. And we've actually done some stuff, which is good. And so we want to talk a little bit about some of the things that have kind of rolled out recently. We want to talk about some of the things that are coming right around the corner. And in fact, in a couple of those, we've done some things and there's more coming, so they kind of fit in both. And then there's some practical things we hope you can take away from this. Some of the tools we're using as part of this Skype for Business. We'll talk about that in the 365 environment. And we'll talk about a new offering we have called One, and that we think will help a bunch. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes on some of what's been done and what's coming, and then we'll spend time on those other two items. And then we'll have time for Q&A at the end, as always. And I'll be joined up here by Dan Zweifel, Matt Arthur, and Amy Walter as we go forward. So a lot of what we've been talking about is about kind of modernizing IT to make sure that WashU can continue to compete. And as we talk about that, we want to go back and visit the vision that we have for IT at Washington University. So I just want to touch on the vision and the values for a second. That what we're really trying to do is to make sure that the right IT services are delivered to the right IT communities from the right provider. And sometimes that provider is WashU IT. Sometimes it's WashU IT, but a cloud vendor behind us. Sometimes it's a school or department. And sometimes those things change over time. Across the IT community, we're trying to take a more customer service approach to what we do. We're really trying to make sure that the university itself is on a common foundation, a common infrastructure, and that the pieces and parts that we have, actually we're starting to knit together to be more seamless in how you experience them as a user. We are trying to be intentional in what we do through IT governance, who helps set our priorities in terms of what we spend our time on. And we have been spending a good amount of time investing in the IT staff themselves. If we're not up to speed on what's going on, it's difficult for us to continue to move things forward. From a values standpoint, we have a set of values that talks about mission first, meaning the things that we roll out should support our faculty, they should support our students, our patients, that we're intentional about how we design things, that we think about whether to build or buy or have best of breed or integration, that we actually are thoughtful about those decisions, that the data that we have in our system is really treated as an asset as opposed to a byproduct of a transaction, so we can use it later for decision making. And that the systems that we roll out meet kind of the motherhood and apple pie criteria of secure, sustainable, maintainable, reliable, and available. And then again, the point about making sure that our IT skills keep up. So let's talk a bit about what's new. I'm going to highlight about 4 different things here. We've clearly done more than that, but I want to highlight a few. Recently, a new conflict of interest system has rolled out, used by our faculty, and then there are 4 conflict of interest offices that have actually worked together with us to consolidate their needs into a single system and represent those to faculty in a common way. And again, back to mission first, really trying to reduce that administrative burden on our faculty. And our understanding, at least as we can measure it through our help desk calls, it's a pretty smooth rollout. We've learned a few lessons that we're applying as we go. Looking at business processes, especially when you're intending to change those early in the process, is helpful. In this case, we bought a product, so really understanding what the product can do and what your processes are and making sure that those fit together and know where you have to make some changes. And we're finding not every vendor is equal, and so understanding their strengths and weaknesses so that we actually can build a good partnership is worth spending some time thinking about. We've gotten some positive feedback on how intuitive the system is so far, so we like the fact that we put some effort into that, and I got feedback on that. And again, as we think about kind of pointing back to the vision and values, we think we demonstrated kind of the mission-first perspective. This system is actually hosted by the vendor and has been very stable for us. I think the approach with our central office partners in terms of customer service has been good. And we believe, among other things, that the data that we actually have here is of higher quality than what we were doing before, and we'll be able to use it for decision-making down the road. Another thing that we've talked about as coming in the past that's actually here, focused on our faculty. Faculty who are doing big data research now have a 40 gigabit network that they can get access to. That system is up and running and available. We don't have as many people using it as we'd like, and so this is a bit of a commercial. We probably could have done a bit more marketing about the availability of it earlier. So if you have faculty, make sure they're aware of this and they can contact us if they have interest in that. And again, trying to focus on the mission, the research mission of the university, and creating, again, a very secure, reliable environment. Actually, the other side of this is we are taking research effort off of our clinical network and off of our regular network so they don't clash with each other. So this actually is kind of two wins in one. Another area is investment in the data warehouse. We have deployed some information in the warehouse about student financial packages with the university's strategic focus on changing the mix of students to be more diverse, both racially, ethnically, and from a socioeconomic perspective. We need to have better understanding of our students. Thinking about diversity, from an HR standpoint, we've actually added talent management data, that's recruiting and applicant data, into the HR data mart. We actually, supporting our medical school departments, have moved clinical billing data into the data warehouse, and we will soon be connecting that with the finance and HR data so that some improved reporting can take place. As we're always competing in the research space, we have improved the data in our research data mart, and we've even included external data from NIH so we can see how we're competing in certain areas by bringing that external data in. Again, I think this is kind of like the WERN. We have this data available. We don't have as many users of this data as we'd like. So a little bit of why we're highlighting it here, but if you have interest in this, please let us know. And one of the things that I was kind of pleased about, and Chris Atkins gave us permission to use this quote. This came out of the work that we were doing in the clinical billing space in terms of the teamwork that is happening between the central fiscal unit, the CFU, the med school, and the IT group really coming together to try and meet particular needs. And obviously, growing the data warehouse is directly applicable to the data as an asset, part of our vision and values. The last thing I'll talk about in the kind of what's new is in our teaching and learning space, we have been running Blackboard on the Danforth campus. Some of the medical school departments use it as well. We have actually moved that system into the cloud, run by Blackboard. And what that has done is it's improved the stability of that system. And we're going to get more regular upgrades without downtime. Where we used to have to take the system down between semesters to do things, we don't have to do that going forward. Again, trying to get to kind of that secure, sustainable component. So let's move into what's coming up. We have talked a lot, I think, in the past here about shared IT services, and just a reminder that's really trying to rebalance some of the IT delivery that's been going on, trying to create a more seamless environment, try to get a more common service quality environment across the institution, and actually provide, again, that common foundation where we can innovate on top of. And we had a lot of redundancy going on that we wanted to address and get to a common solution. So we now have ophthalmology, physical therapy, and occupational therapy in production. We have one punch list item, much as we have with buildings, with ophthalmology, and we've had a couple of struggles there to try and get that finished up. We are in progress with the migration from otolaryngology, and otolaryngology and ophthalmology, we're customers of pediatrics, and so we're talking with pediatrics about working with them, and we're also talking with surgery about surgery and the customers that they have worked with to be in the next group. And as a reminder, we're doing 3 waves of this, and the first wave is focused on clinical departments, so we can get those kind of in this common foundation before Epic goes live next June. We also have our ServiceNow offering where people can request new hardware, software, and so on, and we're going to see an upgrade to that coming, some improvements there in June. Again, trying to get to that basic foundation piece. Voice over IP, as we try to think about improving our communication and collaboration capability, and seeing these old phone systems on copper wire starting to go away. We have been moving towards this voice over internet protocol. A reminder that the med school actually is on a phone system that's we partner with BJC on, delivered by a TFC, and then Danforth is on a separate system. So the medical school is well on its way, 90+% complete, and will be wrapped up this summer. And I think there's some additional features that we'd like to start pushing as soon as that gets done. And the Danforth implementation has started, and we'll be piloting that a little bit on ourselves, and the Brown School is going to be one of our early schools moving into that. And that will take us quite a while to go through, all the way through winter of 2019 to make sure it's a smooth transition. Again, back to trying to provide that common foundation for seamless communication. We've also talked here about administrative systems. So the university intent is to replace and modernize all of our administrative systems over time. What we're trying to do is improve the data quality so we have better data for analytics. We're trying to make the processes more efficient, and we're trying to modernize the technology as we go through and improve the workflow. So you may recall, I think the last meeting we talked about completing a readiness assessment. We have been heads down the last few months addressing some of those things that they told us we needed to do to get ready. There was a number of things. Among those was that we had to redesign our 50-year-old chart of account design on how we keep track of things. That project is actually wrapped up. To be clear about expectations, it's about an 80% solution because we don't know what vendor product we're going with, and so we'll have to finish the design once we pick a vendor. But the company that helped us, Deloitte, actually gave us input on if you go this way, you have to do these things, and if you go that way, you have to do those things. We've also developed a data strategy, and there's been a lot of outreach to try and understand what data is local in departments and schools, some of which these new systems will accommodate, and starting to think more about how we deal with with data strategy and integration and things like that. We have an executive committee that's been pulled together. We're defining a campus advisory team for this structure. Soon, we will be starting to onboard some resources to kind of get this off the ground. You may recall that we actually were a partner with Workday in their student advisory program. We had signed a contract with them, and we were actually providing input and working with other institutions. That contract had an opt-in, opt-out clause last year. We chose to opt out. We opted out not because we didn't like what we were seeing, but because they still need a couple more years to probably get it mature enough where we would be comfortable to implement. And because of that, we actually had to move forward with our undergrad admissions area, and we have picked a product called Slate that they're implementing. You may be aware our graduate departments, many are implementing admissions systems with CollegeNet. Our medical school is also doing some admissions work as well. And these, we will all make sure that that flows and integrates into the back-end student system down the road. Just a note about implementing Slate for undergraduate admissions, there are actually 8 separate systems that actually support our undergraduate admissions process, and we will be able to consolidate that down to one system to do that work. And we actually believe it will reduce the amount of IT effort that's needed to support that going forward. So again, back to vision values, thinking about appropriate solutions, when to buy, when to build, when to buy best of breed versus integration, and thinking hard about the data as the asset, as well as improving processes and making them more efficient. So I talked about Blackboard earlier. We're actually starting a review of that. That we've had some faculty piloting other products. The med school runs a Canvas learning management system for their students. And so we've had some Danforth faculty looking at Canvas and looking at another product, Schoology, and really trying to understand if we can get to a common platform for the university, and understanding that some of these products have leapfrogged others. So we're going to actually have formal pilots where we actually will get feedback from our faculty and students in the fall semester. And we have focus groups that are going to start in May. And so if you have interest in those, I think we'll get that word out. But there's four focus groups scheduled in May where we want faculty to come in and kind of talk to us about what they would like to see in the future in a learning management system. And again, this is mission focused, so we'll be able to improve that as well. In the research space, thinking about informatics, I talked earlier about the investment the university made in a research network. That was a combination of a grant and a central investment from the university. The first that I'm aware of investment centrally by the university in the research space. We've also recently made a decision to invest in a storage solution for our researchers. It's about a $3.5 million investment. And it will give every faculty member, hope I get this right, somebody jump in front of me if I say it wrong, 5 terabytes of data per faculty member, in a sense for free, not really free, somebody's paying for it. And they'll have the ability to buy up from that if they need it at a pretty good rate, I think one that we think benchmarks very well externally. And in this solution, it also provides archival for past the grant, a place to store that data. Many of us have data management requirements of keeping that data past the grant, and this solution will support that as well. The medical school also has created the Informatics Institute in 2016 under Philip Payne's leadership, and we have been working very closely with Philip to try to understand what he's trying to do and how we can be a good IT provider to that institute. For the research storage itself, we're partnering with the McDonald Genome Institute. The storage solution that we've selected actually sits nicely on top of their infrastructure, which is the largest infrastructure the university owns. And so we'll be working together with them and the Informatics Institute to deliver that service out. And we're working with them on other services that I think might be of need, compute and so on down the road. Again, focused on the mission, and then the idea being that if we could provide some of these resources, it would take the burden off of those researchers, not have to think about the technology as much, start thinking about their own research and getting off the ground much more quickly. So I'm going to wrap at this point. What I would suggest is if you see things here that you're interested in or have thoughts, there are governance committees for different domains. If you go to the CIO website, you can see who's on those. Let them know if you have interest. Let us know. We can help you with that. If you're going to see more focus group approaches coming, get involved in those. You can request services and you can access things through a new product called One that you're going to hear about later today. And then we have highlighted a few projects. We have probably over 45 projects, major projects, I would say, active right now. And if you go to the cio.wustel.edu/projects, we update every quarter with a 2-page update on every project, kind of the status, the goals of that project, and the timeline for that project. So if you have interest in, hey, when is that going to be done? Who should I contact? There is a quarterly update to that and a good amount of information there. There's also, for high priority projects, the capital projects that the university's funded, there's a monthly scorecard that sits right next to that link as well. So with that, I'm going to stop. I'll come back up for questions later. What I want to do is introduce Dan Zweifel and Matt Arthur and have them talk a little bit about, we're leveraging a bit of our environment of 365, finally getting on a common email system, along with the big dig at the Danforth campus and the fact we may not be able to park, to figure out how we can leverage some of these new tools to get us through the next couple of years. So Dan, Matt?
Thanks, John. Quick mic check. Make sure everyone can hear us, including on Skype for Business. Make sure we're good to go there. Good? No? Yep. Okay, good. Okay, great. I'm Dan Zweifel. I work within the Shared Infrastructure Organization within WashU IT. Part of my group is responsible for Office 365, which we're going to dive into a little bit today. And this is
The other guy on the screen.
Matt Arthur with Media Services. So hopefully between the two of us, we can highlight a lot of activities that are going on in the collaboration space and some of the tools that we have available to us to use on a regular basis. So as John mentioned, there's a lot of activity, construction going on around both campuses. As we all know, Kings Highway and Forest Park Parkway is a big dig now. The Easton and the Danforth campus is going to be 0 parking, I think after May 22nd, I believe is the date, give or take. So that parking area, 900 plus parking spots will be gone. There's a parking lottery going on that some of you may not know of on the Danforth campus to talk about and select options for parking as we go forward. So before you go, make sure you check out what's going on construction-wise and be prepared with alternatives that we're going to talk about today to use instead of those things. So a while back, about a year ago, I think it was, we did a tech qual survey to kind of get some feedback from our constituencies about IT in areas that we might improve on. And several things came to the top there around collaboration. So we wanted to share with you some collaboration opportunities that you have today. Wustel Box, which hopefully everyone knows about, gives you unlimited storage within the cloud. It also has tight integration with Microsoft Office if you choose to use those tools for editing those files. Box Note is really handy if you want to collaborate note-taking within meetings. We use this quite often. Multiple people can update it and keep track of notes, things they heard that you may not have heard, and collect all that information in real time within a Box Note versus trying to send out meeting notes, those kinds of things post-meeting. So that's Box. It's a great collaboration tool. by itself, but then you add on Microsoft Office 365, which gives you another storage opportunity called OneDrive, very comparable to Woosto Box. It has some different capabilities, a little bit tighter integration with Microsoft Office than Box has today. Skype for Business, which we're going to do a deeper dive in here shortly, and OneNote. We see a lot of folks using OneNote for keeping track of all their meeting notes and sharing those out as well. So another layer of collaboration capabilities there. Media services, which Matt is going to take us through here momentarily, is really more about designing those services, supporting those services going forward, and enhancing our collaboration experience across all the tools that we have available to us at the university. So Office 365, quick update there. Many of you know, probably everyone in this room hopefully can raise their hand and say they've been migrated to Office 365 at this point for email. First time that I know of at the university where we've all been on a single email platform. We've got a little bit further to go. We're working with Department of Pediatrics. We're almost to the finish line there within a week or so. And then Department of Surgery, which we expect to wrap up near the end of May. At that point, the significant majority of the university will be on Office 365 for email. There's a couple small research groups here and there that have them because they're tightly integrated with equipment or processes, those kinds of things. But they're not the day-to-day email systems that we've all known. So hopefully we're going to see a lot tighter collaboration, ability to find people easier across our institution and BJC because of that effort. Next step-wise, as John mentioned, we want to further drive value out of the systems that we have. So we're going to begin to see, you'll begin to see more information about other Office 365 capabilities, such as Skype and Office 365 groups. So first we're going to talk about Office 365 groups. This is a self-service group capability that's built within Office 365. Everyone in this room that has Office 365 can go out there today, create their own group within Outlook very quickly. And then when you do that, then you can instantaneously have access to a suite of other capabilities. There's a built-in calendar, which we'll talk about, Skype for Business integration, SharePoint integration, OneNote, et cetera, et cetera. So within a matter of minutes, you've got a group of folks. They get an email. They've been invited to the group. You can immediately start to collaborate within that space. It's a very powerful tool. So what do you get out of the box? You get a shared mailbox out of the box. This also comes with an email address that you can send to, and then everyone who's a member of the group can receive that email communication. Think of it like a distribution list or a listserv kind of scenario. The nice thing about it is the conversation history is saved within this shared mailbox. So you can always go back and search it and refer to, I know I had this conversation with the group before, what was the communication, what did we decide to do? So that's a powerful tool in and of itself. In addition, the shared OneNote space, so if you need to have a workbook or notebooks out there, you can share those as part of the team effort as well, in collaboration. You can have a shared calendar. A lot of groups like to have a shared calendar so they know they can post events that are out there for the group. They can have sort of the out-of-office calendar, vacation calendar kind of scenarios. Those types of things are great for Office 365 groups. And there's no IT involvement here. You can do this self-service and go out and provision this on your own today. There's no delay in that process. There's a SharePoint component here where you can have a shared OneDrive space as well to collaborate on documents within that space in addition to your own personal OneDrive. This is nice. If you want to have those documents persist beyond your role, maybe you switch roles, the group can persist and those documents can stay within that collaboration space. Again, SharePoint document library, same kind of thing, that common central repository for documents. Planner is a relatively new tool that's been added to that space. Planner is sort of like a project management light. It's task tracking capability, so you can establish a grouping of tasks within a plan and assign those tasks to one or more resources. You can track status, completion, built-in charting, graphing, those kinds of tools are built within Planner. It's not a Microsoft project level of tool, but it is for simple task management and planning, those kinds of capabilities, all right out of the box. So we'll switch over to Skype for Business. Skype for Business we're using today, and of last count we were over 116 people that are attending via Skype for Business, which is great. The tool supports any one of you can establish a meeting that will support up to 250 folks. We're choosing not to use video today, but it supports audio, video, web conference if you want to share a presentation such as we are here.
I am. We are sharing.
And instant messaging. There are folks chatting and asking questions on the tool as we speak. So pretty powerful capability. This is the first time I think we've exercised it to this degree, and so far I think it's standing up pretty well. So great. Again, all around trying to avoid and give you tools to avoid having to travel across campuses and navigate through the parking and construction. So this is a quick little demo on how to book, and it was really quick actually. How to book. I wish I could do it that fast. You can within Outlook on your desktop or from Outlook on the web. You can go back here. Oops. And there's a button there to make a Skype for Business meeting. What that'll do is, many of you saw, if you accept it when you receive the email for this event, it'll embed that link in the invite for you. So that all you have to do is click on it. If you have Skype installed on your desktop or your Mac, it'll ask you if you want to use Skype for that, or you can just use the web. You don't have to have the Skype client installed in order to participate in the event. And it'll, like I said, just embed that right in the meeting for you.
And
Yeah.
I would point out that to set up a calendar event using Skype for Business, if you have the Macintosh Outlook client, that doesn't show up. So you've got to go in through your browser, through email.wustel if you have a Mac. If you have a Windows, it's fine. Or if you go through the browser.
Great point. Thanks, Matt. So there he is. Play it again.
You just have a heavy.
Okay. During the session too, if you forgot to add somebody, oh, oops, I forgot to invite so-and-so to the meeting, you can add those participants on the fly. They'll receive the notice that if they're in Skype, hey, do you want to go join the meeting? You can also share files, those kinds of things. You can also pre-stage your presentations, if you will, upload them to Skype, so that folks, if you have a pre-read scenario kind of thing, they can go out and see those documents ahead of time. You don't have to save them and surprise them all when the meeting starts. That's another capability of Skype as well. So Skype is cross-platform. You can use it on your mobile devices. There's a Skype client for iOS and Android, as you can see here on the Surface, as well as Windows 10. Mac OS is getting better. There's a newer version of Skype for Business for Mac OS. They keep improving that tool. So keep, if you're curious of new versions, we tend to post that on email.wustel, updates to those clients. You can go find the latest and greatest information on email.wustel. Oh, I guess
Is this
this
the
is
one?
how to.
No, okay. That was a mystery slide that slid in there. So I'm just, I was asked to sort of talk about media services and what we provide, but more specifically, how does Skype for Business, how do we integrate that into your locations? And so one of the things, Dan comes up and he does a great job, and the software guys, they're like, yeah, Skype for Business works like a charm, right, so on and so forth. But what we don't talk about enough, and this is what we can bring to the table is if you're not going to be sitting on your laptop or on your phone that has a camera built in, if you're going to be in a conference room or an auditorium, how do I build that capability into those spaces, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. This is just our primary. This is our homepage. This sort of talks about our mission, what it is we're here for. I'm going to cover real quickly. I'm not even going to talk about these very much because I really do want to spend more time talking about how do we implement Skype for Business. How do we make sure that you can have that experience every time, and regardless of what the use case is. We'll talk about that a little bit too. So one of the things we do is we, sort of give our background. We design, right? We've come up with a set of standards, AV standards for classrooms, conference rooms, and auditoriums. And we have some very basic packages that can add things like interactivity, which we'll talk about. That's where you get the hardware, where we're with audio and visual. But what we want, right, so is we want you to be able to walk in. If you walk in over to Becker on the 4th, 5th, and 6th floor, or if you walk in over at MCC, or if you walk in over 150 different rooms just on the medical campus, you'll walk in and you'll go, oh, I've been in this room before. I've just been in it over here, because the experience is going to be the same. Whether it's a button panel touch, but we're going to have that same experience in there so that when you walk in, you'll feel comfortable, you'll know what you're doing. So we talked about it here. This is some of our AV support that we have designed as well as support.
So in these particular cases, in both the medical campus for the MD program for Danforth, and then we have, we work with a couple different schools and on a, quite frankly, on a contract basis, where you can come in and say, hey, we have this event, and we want you to film it, or we want you to stream it. So we do that as well for commencement. You know, for commencement, last year we did the primary commencement, plus we did 13 ceremonies, all within a 48-hour window, to where everyone had their own link, everyone had their own process where if mom and dad couldn't come, they could watch from home, whether it was a recognition ceremony or not. So we talk about web conferencing, here's some examples of some rooms that we've done. So we talked about Skype for Business, right? So some of the broader terms, like web conferencing or video conferencing, people throw those terms about. What it really comes down to is I want to be able to speak to somebody remotely. I want to be able to talk to them whether, you can pick up a phone. That's pretty standard fare. But we want to move beyond that, right? We want to be able to have that connectivity. Well, a lot of times people right now, for the last few years, we've had a contract with Adobe Connect to do web conferencing. What they do really well is they do really well with sharing your desktop like we're doing here, and then people talk on audio. Usually people will use an actual phone line, right? But if you try to do video with Adobe Connect, it gets a little bit rougher. It's a little bit difficult, more difficult to implement, and if you have people on the phone, and you're doing live video, right? It often won't match up. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, hey, let's look at these different scenarios and let's figure out different ways we can affect a good experience. And like Dan pointed out, what we want is rather than you have to sign up online and get Tony Phillips and the gang, and by the way, thanks Tony for all the work you've done here to get this up and running. But rather than that, we want you to be able to just do it yourself. We want this to be DIY, right? We want you to be able to have these meetings without having to call me or my team or Dan or his team. So these are a couple rooms. These are a couple of the larger rooms that we have where we have just basic interactive, basic packages built in. So this is a projector or a flat screen. Again, you walk in and you'll be able to push a button on a wall to decide what's the input here, right? Am I going to have the laptop in this case, or am I going to have a built-in desktop in the room? But they're all going to look that same. And actually, what's on the screen right there, that's our input from a product called Kramer Via Connect Pro. That's our wireless interactive collaboration device we put in these rooms so that wirelessly, on the medical campus right now, you have to use WSM Secure, but you can log on wirelessly with your laptop. You don't have to plug in. You can have up to 4 people share the screen at once. You can have up to 25 people logged in and just take their turns. Okay, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, and do presentations rather than having to pass the cable around, as we have done in the past. So one of the other things we do is we have, if you go to our website right now, mediaservice.worcester, we have a lot of really good both documentation, both printed documentation as well as e-learning documentation. We're going to start shifting our focus, again, as we talked about, to Skype for Business. And in a partnership with Dan's group, what we will do when people call us is we'll talk to you and say, what are the use cases? What are you trying to accomplish? So whether it's in 1650 over at North Campus, we had the application development team moved in there, and we had probably 25 rooms of AV that we designed. Well, they wanted one room where they had built-in interactivity. So we said, okay, let me tell you, our first option is always to say, for $300, I could hook you up with the kit. I could put a basic webcam on a tripod and a full duplex speakerphone. All this with an extended USB cable. All this plugs into your laptop. That entire kit's under $300. We used that kit about 4 years ago, when the Board of Trustees Student Committee, they were interviewing a potential candidate from Washington, D.C. We rolled this in a conference room that had 15 people in it, and it went fabulously. Right? This is a good quality speaker, full duplex speakerphone. I use this at my desk. in lieu of the built-in speaker by computer. So we often talk about this. Is this good enough? If we hook it up to your laptop and you're running Skype for Business, is that going to work for you functionally? If not, we have another step up where we will put a computer in the room, we'll hook up all these things to the computer, change the input, and it's a little bit lower cost, more costly than this, obviously, but not as expensive as a room like this, right? So we're going to put that in, and then we have a even bigger option. So we've done that in a few of the executive boardrooms where we have put in a full interactive microphone array, and we build in where you can actually dial, if you want to use the phone system, voice over IP, you can actually dial it from the touch panel. So we have a few different options of interactivity. It just depends on what you're looking for in your particular space. And the other interesting thing that as we work with Dan and his crew is that every use case for Adobe Connect that we have found that we've used in particular to Adobe Connect, we've been able to find a solution in Skype for Business. The difference is one costs the university an annual contract, one is part of the built-in package, and everybody gets it on their desktop. So, as I said, I wasn't going to spend a whole lot of time talking about our services. This sort of sums up. We design hardware packages. We want to take that as a part of that process, partner with Dan's group to not only help you in your particular use case, but also how do we apply it in an unusual situation. And the sort of the last one I'll leave it with is I've had a couple different departments where the head of the department said, I want to have regular weekly meetings with my 3 or 4 remote groups. And I said, that's great. What have you done before? Well, we've set up, Adobe Connect, or we've set up other Zoom or whether other products. But every once in a while, Dan, who's the office person who sets it up, Dan's not here. So nobody knows how to log in. So what we want to be able to do is we want to create situations where we can say, hey, we'll create this link that we can put it. And by the way, this link for this meeting, we can use this link for every town hall meeting we have. We can use the same link. It's the same virtual room. We want to create a situation where you can set that up, set up these bi-weekly meetings, throw the link in there, and then you're done. Doesn't matter if Dan's there or not. That's all different specific use cases that we try to work around and help you with, again, to make it a do-it-yourself. So we'll be here if you have any questions at the end.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Matt. I think this is an example of, trying to build a better foundation and trying to leverage some of this technology and make it just more simple and part of what we do. In our particular case, in IT, we have people in many, many buildings, and so we've been taking advantage of this technology, and I will say there's a little bit of a learning curve up front. But when you start to think about how you can leverage all these things together, including Box and the ability to collaborate on documents from multiple locations while you're looking at each other and talking to each other, it's really a tremendous change and a big productivity boost. But it's going to take a while in this culture to actually now catch up to the technology. I think before we were maybe behind in technology, and now we're going to have to play catch up. And what I'd like to do now is ask Amy Walter to come up and talk about another tool that has been delivered under her leadership, and then we'll take questions after that. Amy?
Perfect, thank you. So I have the privilege to share with you, some of you may have already seen it, and this might be a review, but some of you it might be new, a new quick and easy way to access services across the university. So solves a couple of problems. First, the where is it problem. If you know that a service is provided, it's out there somewhere, you've heard of it, you've seen it before, but you can't figure out how to get back to it, this is a really great and easy, quick way to search for that and hopefully find it pretty easily. We've seen some really great success in getting back to things that are out there. Another great thing that it provides is deep links into things. So we have some great capabilities today, some functionality that's kind of buried in some of our core systems. So for instance, if you want to go report your time in HR, something just simple that everyone does every month, today you go into HR, you have to click through employee self-service, and it's maybe 4 clicks down to get there. And One provides the opportunity for us to just bring that up. So you go into One and you can deep link right into submitting your time or approving your employees' time, things like that. Looking up your benefits. So some of those, again, that functionality that is in the core system and you can't really remember how to get to all of it. It alleviates the need for so many bookmarks and favorites that you probably have that end up being outdated and hard to keep relevant. With One, we take care of that for you. So as things change, we update the tiles, they're called, on the One page, and you don't have to worry about keeping those updated. You can just keep one.woostel.edu bookmarked, or your home page or whatever, and always trust that it's going to get you right to the task that you're looking for. So here is just a screenshot of the homepage for One. You'll see there the ability to sign in. Another really great feature of this is single sign-on. So we've updated some of our core systems, HR and finance specifically, to move us towards a shared, consistent, shibboleth-enabled login so that you don't have to log in multiple times to these systems. And what One provides is you log into this service once, and all of those applications will share that authentication. So you can easily link in, again, to some of those deep links or to some of the home pages of those applications. I'll do a demo here in a minute so you can kind of see some more of the functionality, but a couple of things worth pointing out here is within, just the look and feel is great. We feel that it's a more modernized view of some of our services, and it provides like a portal-like feel where you can customize some of this. So after you log in, you can have a favorites bar, so you can click the little heart there on some of the tiles to add them to your favorites. So if you always know that you come to these same 4 or 5 tiles, you can add those. You can also see the most popular, and we have the ability to feature items as well. So if we know that there are things that are going to be of importance or a desirable task for this given time frame, we can add those to featured. Some of the functionality that, again, this is a cloud solution, so this is something that we purchased and provided. It comes with a lot of great functionality that we're going to phase in, that's not ratings and reviews, for instance. Some of the other pieces of One we rolled out in phase 1, so the single sign-on, the institutional look and feel, the ability to search and filter by different things, not just always typing in a search, but we've grouped things by categories, or we didn't do it by campus, but by role. You can kind of filter things by if you're faculty, staff, or student. And then the other thing I'll mention is one location, any device. So this works great on a mobile device. You can log in, and just again, really great look and feel, and it's responsive on tablets and mobile devices, which is very nice. So I'll flip over quickly to One. Again, it's one.woostel.edu, and the first time that you launch that, you get this kind of smoke screen. It only pops up once, just to kind of familiarize you with some of the functionality in One. A couple things that I'll call out, obviously the ability to enter a search, the ability to browse by category. So we were able, for instance, to bundle all of the research tasks that some of our research users were used to seeing on the Research Gateway. They can now go here and they can either search for it, or they have the ability to browse by category, click on research, and see all those research tasks that they're used to seeing on the Research Gateway in a much more modernized view. And single sign-on, which is great. The ability to select your role. Again, you can log in, and then you click on the actual tile, they're called, or task, to launch it. So if I just click anywhere, I get rid of that smoke screen, and again, it won't pop up again. But you can see here, like in featured, that parking lottery is a great example of where we can feature tasks. On the Danforth campus, as Dan mentioned, this was a very popular site on Monday when the lottery opened, and so I'm an example of, you know, I knew I could go to my email to find the link. I know somebody emailed it to me, or I could just go to one.woostel and I knew it would be there. And if it wasn't featured, I could easily search for it and find it that way. There's also the capability here, did not find what you were looking for, so that's a way for us to solicit feedback from all of you. If there are things that you feel are missing, or wouldn't it be great if this was there too? We are trying to build out the full breadth of tasks and tiles within the application over time. Again, the most popular, and then you have the ability to click here in the little heart once you're logged in to add it to your favorites. And we also have the capability to provide some information. So rather than clicking on the actual tile itself to launch it, you can click on and that gave me the smoke screen again because it's the first time I clicked on an informational task, but you can click on the information tab to just learn more about that task or that tile, that website that you're trying to get to, and kind of who owns it and what type of information can you expect there. We also have the capability of including announcements. So if we wanted to add an announcement about, you know, benefits enrollment to the HR tile, we could do that here. And it would show up in the announcements, and it would also highlight that on the homepage. And that's kind of shows that here. You get that little red circle there if there's an announcement, and if you click on it, it just kind of gives you a blurb there, announcement for that item. And here gives the example of view and print my W-2. If there's an announcement for timely response, we can do that there. Again, the favorite and the info. So next phases of the launch, we launched this the end of March, and our initial phase was mainly primarily targeted to staff, faculty and staff, but primarily staff. We were trying to get out a lot of the administrative and you know, HR and finance and you know, parking, some of the administrative functions that we knew were kind of a pain point for employees to find. We know that there's an opportunity to add student tasks to access more of the student system, so that'll come after this summer in August timeframe. And then we also have the capability of extending out some of the publishing capabilities, so allowing schools and departments that own some of this content to kind of manage their own tiles as well, so that they're not, you know, relying on us to go through and kind of curate some of that, but that they can do that themselves. We have a lot of interest in that. A lot of schools and departments have voiced, you know, their desire to do that and kind of own their content. Research is a great example where our research administration function was able to kind of pilot that publisher role for us, and they, you know, curate and kind of own those research tiles. Ratings and reviews is the other item. So you can add the ability for your users to rate things kind of like you can on a lot of popular, you know, Amazon and things like that. So that is the demo. Any questions from anyone?
Well, you might not want to leave, and Dan and Matt might want to make their way up. I think that we'll open it up for questions on any of the topics you've seen, and anything else that you thought you wanted to hear about but didn't. And I'm looking back there to see if we also got anything over Twitter or Skype. The questions, I'm assuming they'll get called out, but I can see people in the room here, so we'll start here. Questions, comments on anything you've seen or anything else? Yes?
So on a lot of the undergraduate pages, I might be the only person here that cares about the undergraduate pages. Each year there are more landing pages with each undergraduate page. So now instead of getting one click to get into Blackboard, it's taking twice as many clicks as I get on the landing page. What is the purpose that these serve? Because each application is now getting harder to get into from a UI UX perspective. And then how are these not redundant with one.woostel? Because, you know, especially if I wanted to get onto Blackboard from one.woostel, I'd have to go to one, see that Blackboard was working, click on Blackboard in one.woostel, see again that Blackboard was working, and then log into Blackboard. So what is the direction
So your question's really around some changes that have happened to the Blackboard user interface and how they,
Well, I've seen the landing pages in other places, like Box also has a landing page. And I believe if you don't bookmark the right thing for out for email job useful, you'll also land on the landing page for that. It's like across the board, watching you undergraduate web apps. Maybe not all undergraduate ones, but like those landing pages keep cropping up and increasing the amount of clicks that it takes to get to content.
okay. I don't know if we've got anybody in here who's, I'm not qualified maybe for that.
So,
And repeat the
yeah,
question,
so the question was, why are all these landing pages out there, right? I gotta go to email.wuso, and then I gotta click another link to get into email. Or I gotta go to box.wuso, I gotta click another link to get into box. Is that your question? Right. So, prior to one coming to existence, we didn't have any place where we could provide information about those services to folks prior to them just trying to click on the link and log into the service and maybe find that the service was being disrupted in some fashion. Or there was no way for us to easily provide access to fax and those types of things. So we built these pages, these landing pages, if you will, to provide that information, just so there would be a place to have it. And I think with one, having the information icon there, the announcement capability we have today, I think we're gonna see a drive or push to go to one and provide more of that one-click experience, and then click the info if you want to, versus having to every time you go into the services.
so you're suggesting we're in transition?
Yes.
So you're saying in the future, I won't click in one and then still go to the landing page?
I think that's our goal.
Yeah, no, it definitely, Box definitely has deep link capability, so that's one of the big,
What's our goal? Gotta repeat what he said.
oh, he asked, sorry, for those of you online, he asked what the goal was. If one was, one is not meant to be yet another click. It's actually meant to eliminate a lot of clicks. And that's the whole, one of the main points, is that we have a tile that gets you directly into Box. We also have a Learn About Box tile that takes you to box.woostel.edu, or, yeah, the other way. One to learn about it that goes to the landing page, and then one that takes you directly in. And that will definitely be the case for Blackboard and others. That big one for HR, and that was kind of the example I was walking through.
So I have a question though. Will there be, I saw something up there, Dan, about single sign-on. So once you've signed on to one, any of those you'll be able to get into, or you have to sign on to them again?
No, it shares the sign-on, so it's a single sign-on. Yep. Did you have another question?
Yeah, let's go over, and we may have to go offline with you, it sounds a bit, but in the back?
What is the scale of the new research storage system in total size, and what's the implementation timeline?
Good.
So we work with a lot of genomic data, maybe not as much as MDI, but we're sitting on 300-400 terabytes and looking at the height of another half a petabyte. So
Got it.
obviously, we don't want to hold all this ourselves in the long term.
Yep. So the question, again, for other folks is, what's the scale of the research storage solution and the timeline for delivery of that? And I'll answer that, but I'll also remind folks if they go out to that quarterly update thing, you'll see timelines and goals and things. There's about 6 petabytes of storage being purchased initially, 2 for archive and 4 for active. And I will say that James Fitzpatrick, as an example, who helped come up with this, is probably already thinking about buying more because of generating so much data. And so it's something that can scale, and if there are bigger, larger needs that don't quite fit easily, contact us and we'll talk about it. The initial launch is probably December of this year. We'll have the first storage pieces available, and then we'll be adding more storage to that as we go. But I think we're getting very close to actually ordering the equipment and starting to get that onboarded. So
Order at the end of May, that's the goal.
order at the end of May is the goal, and up and running in the fourth quarter, which probably means late in the fourth quarter. But
Actually, no, we're shooting for early.
May, online question?
Yes, we have some questions via Skype. The first question from Katie. When will the Skype for Business Guide be on the Media Services website?
When will the Skype for Business Guide be on the Media Services website?
So, Katie and others, right now, if you go to email.woostel.edu, there is a how-to button, And one of the how-tos is Skype for Business. So rather than try to usurp, away from that data or add additional, we want to keep it in one location. What we will start to do, though, is we will start to replace or mimic our Adobe Connect, where we break it down sort of even more modularly, and again, in coordination with Dan's team. So, but for right now, if you want to have online information, if you go to email.wistel and click How To.
it.wistel.edu in the how-to
Right.
section.
I'll let Dan.
All right,
It's also available on email.wusto to the FAQs.
yeah.
Or-
And to the earlier question, I think we want to start consolidating that down as well.
So rather than have 2 or 3 locations, I don't want to add to that confusion.
Yeah,
I want to make sure we
Leverage.
continue to point toward there.
yep.
And the second question, does Skype or Adobe allow shared screen? I have used Zoom before. Is that available because it has that option?
So does Skype or Adobe allow for sharing screen? I've used Zoom before, and it allows that option. So right now, we are watching, you out there are watching Skype for Business, where we are sharing the screen, and you should see the video as a small little icon in the bottom right-hand corner. So in fact, that is exactly what we're doing. We just happen, the only difference is we're sort of operating in webinar format, where we have turned off the ability for anyone who's a participant to turn on their microphone or their camera. We are only allowing them to have IM. If you were to do a full interactive, it's kind of like you would do with Adobe Connect, where you have 3 or 4 endpoints and you want to watch while I share my screen and you want to discuss it, we would not have that option. We would turn on audio and video so that you could see each other, etc. Or not have the video and just share the screen and just have audio. Is that?
So the short answer was yes, it does. So,
Hey, why do with one word when you can have, Any more questions over there, Aisha?
questions online, anything inside here? Yes?
What is the HIPAA compliancy of Skype for Business?
HIPAA compliance for Skype?
Great question. It is covered under our BAA with Microsoft.
Well, Skype for Business within the university, yeah.
Yeah, so just,
One side of the university, like
Repeat.
interviewing or talking to a student, and on the clinical side, we have to determine what client they're using. If you use the Skype for home, to the Skype for Business client, we might have some issues with that.
so there's a little bit further dialogue within the room, and so long as it's a WashU endpoint, it's considered to be under BAA. If you're sharing, collaborating with external folks, Kevin Hardcastle indicated we may need to have a discussion to better understand their endpoint before we could say whether it's covered.
So if
under
there's
our BAA.
questions like that, infosec@woostel.edu, and somebody from the security team can get back to you and talk about that.
So again, I just want to point out, right, so Skype for Business, Adobe Connect, these others, these are not meant to replace telemedicine, where we have a lot of those issues going across the country back and forth. These are meant to allow people to do, this sort of presentations or conversations together, both within the university and without. But again, I don't think anything here is going to replace that very focused telemedicine process that includes all those HIPAA compliance stuff.
Another online?
We have another question. Is there more info about Office 365 groups? And this is from Tom Danforth.
More info on 365 groups functionality.
So
Yes.
short answer is yes. We don't have a lot of FAQs out on Office 365 groups to date. We are working on those. It's fairly new capability that we're seeing an uptick in use. And so yes, there will be more info about Office 365 groups to come. We are rolling out a Skype for Business adoption program, which you'll be hearing more about over the coming weeks, and we intend to incorporate some of that capability within that discussion as well, as it relates to Microsoft Teams, which we haven't talked about yet, but is part of Office 365 groups capability.
So now that, and I'll add more than yes as well, I mean, now that we're getting the environment there, we're focused on adoption and starting to share more info on how to use the rest of the tools. Anything else online, Aisha? Other questions in the room?
Oh, wait, I have a quick question. Amy, in 1.wistel, Can I only add icons for Worcester applications? Or let's say, Dan asked me this, let's say if I want to put my link to Amazon or to iTunes or something, will that work?
No, so users can't add their own tiles. So it's not in that sense, it's not a one-stop shop for everything that you go to inside and outside the university. You can only add favorites and you can only access things that are available within one.woostel. So if there is something that's not there, that's where that capability comes in play, where you can request things or make suggestions about what gets added. We will most likely not add Amazon, but
Sorry, buddy.
things within Woostel. Sonia, yeah.
I have a question today, actually, it's a different way. Do you have any intent to have any tiles in collaboration with Barnes in phase 3?
Yeah, so question in the room was in regards to any BJC tiles down the road. Right now, it's not on our roadmap. We're focusing on the student and then the publishers and things needed in those areas, but certainly something that we can look into and explore. We have had a lot of requests for, after we went live, the top 2 requests were dining services and libraries. Everybody was missing those 2. A close third and fourth, though, were, will Epic be here, and what about Encore? I think those are discussions we still need to have as far as the single sign-on and things like that. Some of those capabilities will be missed, but, definitely on our docket to review.
You had your hand up earlier.
I
I didn't
did.
know if you had it again. No?
Okay, so my other question is, when and where are you getting your student opinions on technology? Like, my Bablock landed in the pilot for Schoology and Blackboard Ultra is Blackboard replacements, and nobody ever asked me what I thought about them, or any of the other students. Landing pages, it wasn't like these, or, sorry, I'm just good as an example.
Yeah, fair question. So what are we doing about student input into our initiatives? And I would say we've got work to do there. I would start with that. I know for the formal pilots that we're going to have, there is some discussions going on about how we do that. We also have the Student Technology Services group that has a lot of links into the undergrad group, and we do get some feedback through there, but I think we need to pump that up a bit. And then we have a similar group at the medical school, but I don't think we have a uniform approach to that, and it's actually something that we need to work on. And I'll see if there's anybody has anything to add to what.
Just wondered if CRM met with.
Yeah, I know I meet monthly with medical school.
Right, that's the, right, yeah,
I'm not sure we have similar.
right. So that's the medical school, yeah. Right, which STS stack, yep. So we've got more to do there.
Can we have security escort that gentleman?
He's got great questions.
Oh, cool, so you know what? I'll talk with Sherry
Yeah.
about getting this integrated.
We're
Little-
actually in the process of working, I think we started the process of working with Sherry to engage staff in a focus group for the student launch forum.
Yeah, so there's work going on there. There was some inside conversation, probably not worth repeating to the group, but nothing else online? Going once, twice? We love one. Oh,
Could you repeat the answer for outside of WashU participants attending Skype for Business, such as Grand Rounds?
so
The answer.
Such as what?
the answer on HIPAA with Skype for Business, in this particular case, if it would apply to grand rounds. And again, I think we would have to look at that because it's non-WashU endpoints potentially in the mix. So I think if you're ever unsure about Skype, Box, any of those things, let us know. I know out in the security website, I think we actually show a bit of a grid about what's allowed and not allowed, and we'll continue to keep that updated as well. All right, well, I thank everybody for coming, both online and
You just had.
oh, there's some more slides going. I appreciate everybody for coming, for the questions. If you have follow-up, please let us know. cio.worcester.edu. We'll get to our email group and we can respond to those. Thanks for your time.